Welcome to Practice Success Beyond the Dental Chair, the podcast that is dedicated to revolutionising the way dental professionals succeed beyond the dental chair. Join us for a unique blend of insightful interviews with industry experts and valuable tidbits of information to help you thrive in your dental specialist practice. In each 20-minute episode, we'll delve into a variety of topics, including HR, marketing, innovative techniques and systems, and AI to help you transform your practice and unlock its full potential. Whether you're a dentist or a specialist looking to enhance your practice, this podcast is your go-to resource for professional, personal, and profitable success. Hello and welcome everyone to today's podcast. I'm joined by Dr Steve Soukoulis, who I met in Tech Alley at ADX this year. He is a periodontist who expanded into implantology and owns a practice in South Australia. He became the founding member of Dental Implant Registry, also known as DIR. Are you treating a new patient and don't know what type of implant or abutment they have? Unsure of your regulatory and record-keeping requirements? DIR is your answer. It is a registration platform improving communication for dental professionals. Steve, can you please tell us about how you came up with DIR and how it benefits practices, patients, and the industry as a whole?
Thanks, Michelle. I'd like to start by thanking you guys for inviting me to speak today. It's been a great pleasure meeting you at ADX. So it's a great way to link up with people, network, and here we are. So it sort of speaks volumes of why we do what we do. So the registry started off, believe it or not, the inception was really when I was a postgrad back in the late 90s. In our postgrad clinics, we were dealing with implant complications for patients that had implants placed in the dental hospital. And back even at that time in a centralised building with centralised case notes, we still were lacking information about what patients actually had in their mouths. So when patients came to us with complications, sometimes the records were not there, sometimes the information about the implants were missing. And so when we were trying to remove prostheses to surgically access infections and so on, it was really made quite difficult. So one of the important protocols when you're dealing with dental implants, you're maintaining dental implants, is the ability to remove the prosthesis, so remove the bridge, or particularly with full arch work, the whole bridge, and get access to the implants and clean the implants, clean the fitting surface of the prosthesis, and then reinstall that, take radiographs and reinstall the prosthesis. So patients should be having that done on a regular basis to maintain their implants. And so not necessarily single crowns or small bridges, but when it comes to large full arch work, that's a requirement. But sometimes when we're removing crowns or bridges, the necessity comes about because we want to surgically access the implants, and it gives us better access to get around graft and get excellent closure around the implants. And one of the things that we found was, particularly when I've moved into private practice, was I would place a dental implant and I would use one system, and then the patients came back and I assumed that the same system was used with the implant, and unfortunately, whilst it was compatible parts of the screw was different. So then patients came for surgery, we couldn't remove the prosthesis, go away, come back, and it created a bit of problems in terms of patient timing, extending duration of treatment, and so on. And sometimes, of course, we saw patients that weren't implants placed by our clinic, but were 10 or 15 years old. And so we're dealing with these really long legacy implants, and then trying to work out what components they have is a bit of a nightmare. Although there are prosthodontists and clinicians that are excellent at, finding the right screwdriver, they've got microscopes that can see what's down there. They'll try to fit component, screwdrivers on to get prosthesis off. The majority of us don't do that on a regular basis. And where the significantly helpful information is what was the implant, and then what is the prosthesis and what screw was used, because then we can pick and choose or pre-order the componentry that we need to help us affect treatment or maintenance of a dental implant. So it goes a long way in understanding, what we're dealing with. So one of the benefits of the registry is because we register those components, both the implant and the abutment and the screws that go in to lock the prosthesis into place. it allows for dentists that then see that patient that didn't place that prosthesis or implant to then allow them to maintain those devices. Sometimes patients stay within a practice for their lifetime, and you say, "Well, I've got my records. I don't need the registry." But with surveys that we've done in the past with patients, we found that 93% of patients at least move once in their lifetime. So under 10% of patients stay with that dentist, and about 90% of people move on. And not because they've got an issue with the dentist, it's because they change jobs, they change states, they change locations. And can you imagine from an international perspective how difficult that is? So again, our aspirations are to move to become an international registry and allow for patients that come to Australia or anywhere else in the world to be able to identify their devices. So,
Steve, is it just in Australia at the present time?
It's in Australia and New Zealand, and we're looking at moving to a couple new international locations. So we're pretty excited about that. By doing that one move, it means that the site will be international and will be able to be accessed by patients and clinicians to try to identify dental implants. One of the really important benefits of the registry is people say to me, "Hey, Steve, I keep excellent records, so I don't need the registry, neither do my patients." And that doesn't great that they do that. So they're meeting their regulatory requirements in terms of accurate records and contemporaneous records. But what it means is that it doesn't allow any other clinician to access those records on a timely basis. So one is the patient's alive, the dentist is alive, the clinics are still operating. That's great. But what about when the dentist retires, the dentist dies, the patient has to be identified for some reason from a forensic perspective? The registry has that information at any one time. Patients have access to their information 24/7, so they log on to their phone and they can get the information straight away and show the treating dentist what they've got. So the benefits from that perspective are communication. So if you're trying to talk between practices or between patients and dentists, the communication level is really improved, and the accuracy of that, the time it takes to receive that information, and the accuracy of the records is really, really high. So that's one of the major benefits of the registry for sure.
So what sort of feedback have you had from patients that are using DIR, Steve?
So to date, from the clinics that we go back and ask our clinics, like, "Hey, how are you going with the registry?" 99% of patients say, "I want my information on the registry." So there's a very, very low no rate. And that tends to be more so from some older patients that say, "Look, I've got another 5 or 10 years and from, I'm going to stay with you. I'm not going to move anywhere." I get that. That makes a lot of sense. So the only patient that's ever said no to me, my practice, was actually an engineer, and he was in his mid-70s, and he said, "Steve, I'll probably be dead in 4 years." And I said, "I'm a pretty healthy guy." And I said, "Look, it's involuntary, so patients can elect so it's an opt-in registry, so you have to speak to patients. Again, one of the things that have happened in the last probably 6 months or so is that we've moved from being just a register, so in other words, registering your information on a website and a database, to a registry, which is a true medical device registry. So where we scientifically analyze the data and we come back and give advice to the profession, to manufacturers, to TGA, to other associations and bodies. So that we say, "Hey, look, here's 10,000, and we're getting close to 10,000 implants now. Here's 10,000 implants, and this is where they were placed. This is what they're doing. This is a great combination. This is not such a great combination. This bone graft material is doing this. This bone graft material is doing that." So the registry is actually 2 bits. One is an identification and communication device, and the other one is a data capture and analysis device. And so that's what we're pretty excited. I'm building a team at the moment to get us up to speed, and we're being supported by a couple of the other registries that are around Australia to help us, get to the point where every year we have an annual report. We're conducting research and so on. So we've got 3 research projects in the pipeline now for dental implants. So it's pretty exciting times. Yeah, we're doing a lot of work.
Yeah. But so that's fantastic from the research and the learning, and obviously the dental industry as a whole with regard to that. But going back to the registry for the patients to register,
Yes.
so the dental practice, they become a member, is that?
That's right, yeah. So how does it work for dentists and patients? We sort of toyed with the idea of patients putting their information in, but then it got too complicated. So when we came up with the structure, we went, okay, well, we're in the 21st century. Let's make it digital. So the world's first digital implant registry. So that's a digital implant registry. In other words, we're the world's first implant registry, and then we're probably the second dental implant registry. The Swedish implant registries are a mandatory requirement in Sweden because they socialise their healthcare. Everything's paid for by the government, so it makes sense that it's a mandatory requirement. In Australia, it's mandatory to register or patients' implant cards for zygomatic implants, which are the real big, long implants. And we're hoping that eventually the endosseous, which is the dental ones that sit in your jawbone, become also mandatory to give patients cards. So what that means is that patients have access to their information. Dentists are actually positively looking to give patients implant cards. And the registry is a digital implant card. So we solved that problem. It's free for dentists to use, and the patient pays a small fee to register their devices. So the practice will register their practice. They have a very short training session, 20 minutes or so with their practice, and that's basically, it takes about a minute or to 2 minutes to register implants. And if you're having a pretty standard implant abutment, that's another 1 to 2 minutes. If you've got some specialized stuff, maybe up to 5 minutes. So it's a pretty quick and easy procedure to perform, or a record to perform. And then you have that record in your practice, and then the patient has the record in the practice instantaneously. So that information is distributed and provides transparency to the patients. You know, when my patients come to me, I say I use the top 3 or 4 implants in the world. I don't use copy parts and stuff. I want you to get the best outcome, and it's my way to show patients I'm being transparent with what I'm using. And so a lot of practice do the same. They say, look, we want to show patients that we use the best parts and we care about their outcomes. And so we're more than happy to provide patients with information when they have implants.
That's really good, because I'm non-clinical, Steve.
Yes, so that's okay.
It sort of goes a little bit above my head.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It was being explained to me, and I was explaining about this registry to a dentist, and I was saying it's a bit like you have different parts and you've got a Ford and a Holden, and the Holden part isn't compatible with the Ford, but this registry opens it up to that. And for me, that was a really good way of understanding it. And he just knew straight away. He goes, "Oh my gosh, that's just so good." So
yes,
it's a really, really great thing.
Look, we say to dentists, we're not telling dentists what to do. If they want to use compatible parts that they feel are high quality, then that's great. What we want to try to help educate dentists about is, if you're using componentry that's really low quality, it's not bought through supply chains in Australia. So also we're supporting manufacturers. The manufacturers pay millions of dollars to be here and supply products. And so when people buy things off eBay or from a relative overseas or something, that's actually, 1, illegal, and 2, we just don't know what those devices do and how they work. Utilizing the registry, dentists are showing their patients, look, I'm not doing that. Everything is legal. We're picking another regulatory requirement, which is I use products that are on the Australian Registry for Therapeutic Goods through the TGA. And so that everything's up to speed and everything's above board. So that's another benefit.
That is, I actually never thought of that, because implants, they're expensive for a patient, really. They're at the high end of dentistry. So being able to deliver a product and then to add credibility through the transparency of using those high end things, showing that it's not obviously not a compulsory thing, but you want to register because of the well-being of the patient. And that's what I loved about it as well, because it enhances the whole patient experience. You become very focused on the patient, to delivering to their needs and what's best for them as well, and that's what I really loved. And that's why I wanted, you to be a part of this podcast as well, because you're a dentist who's identified a need and you've come up with an innovation, which is just amazing. And it also enhances that experience.
Thank you. That's a really important point, that I think in dentistry, unfortunately, we're not really taught about patient rights and records, and sometimes a little bit about records. What encompasses a good record, or a record that's compliant. It has to be contemporaneous. In other words, roughly the time that you did the treatment, and it must be accurate. And so it's amazing to me today that not a lot of dentists know they actually have to put down the reference and lot number of the device that they're using. So if it's an implant, like reference lot number. If it's an abutment, they have to actually request it from the laboratory, get it from the laboratory and record that, and it doesn't happen. So a lot of patients come to us just off of Facebook and so on, and they say, hey, look, I want to register my parts. We go back to the clinician and say, look, the patient's requested this information. They say, we don't have it. We don't record it. And so they're not compliant. And so we buffer that. We're not the police. We don't tell people what to do or what to say, but we just say to the dentist, look, in future, you just be aware, at least the reference number and the lot number is a requirement for your, from your record keeping requirements from ADA regulations and ARPA, requirements. So, and then from the Australian government perspective, there's a charter of patient rights.
Yes.
And through that charter, so through the Australian Commission of Safety and Health and Healthcare, and in that charter, there's a section for patient information and access to your information.
Yes.
And so what happened, unfortunately, with some devices recently that are not dental, people had a lot of problems. And when patients were going to the surgeon saying, look, I want my information, they weren't providing it for whatever reason. I don't know why that was occurring. And so the government set up the Australian Office for Community. If a patient doesn't get the information, they can go there and request their information. If you don't provide it, there's a $20,000 fine. So it's really important that dentists know, one, I've got to, from my regulated perspective, I've got to keep my records accurate. And two, if a patient requests my information, I must provide that patient with information. And so that, sometimes dentists not, obviously there's quite a few dentists that are not on the registry. We'd love them to be on the registry, but we don't want to bother them too much. But when patients come to us and they email us back, say, hey, where's my registration? Sometimes we disappoint them and say, look, we can't do it because your dentist doesn't have that information. So that creates other issues. Ideally, write down your lot number, batch number, let the patient know. And because the registration is a digital card, it's done automatically for you. You don't have to fax the patient, email the patient. You don't have to do anything. It's done within the application. As soon as that device goes in, the patient gets an email and they get their information.
Wow. Excellent. So have you got anything else that you want to add, Steve?
Oh, look, I think we've covered a bit. I would say that look, there's some new regulations coming through from the TGA, and they're sort of tightening things up about what devices and how people see devices, how they use them. We think they're really positive things, that changes that the TGA have made in the supply chain. And we're hoping that we just work more with dentists and patients and the industry to literally help everyone sort of smooth things out. At the moment, there's disconnections between communication and what's happening, and we're hoping that we sort of smooth that out and help. And ultimately, our goal is patient care. We want to see patients have better outcomes, and that's really why we created the registry. We're seeing patients have problems with their implants because of a lack of communication, a lack of understanding of parts and what they do, and the registry is there to try to improve communication and then educate dentists. So, look, this device is working really well, great. Maybe this combination is not. So we really hope that we're a positive change in the ecosystem of dental implants moving into the future.
I must say I did speak to Rochelle Fisher, and she does training with implants on proper infection control, and I asked her about DIR and she just wholly endorsed it as being fantastic.
Terrific.
Place to go. So it's really good. So in summary, for practices utilising DIR, they can minimise the potential complications such as infections, fractures or loosening of patient implant, crown and bridge. Patients know exactly what components and materials they're receiving, and they can easily be notified if there's a product recall if that's necessary. Their information is retained on an accessible outside of the practice records 24/7 for their lifetime with secure data and password protection. So for more information about Steve from DIR, including links to their work and social media profiles, please check out the episode description. Thank you so much for joining us today, Steve. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and to learn more and spread the word about DIR to the dental world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it was great meeting you the other time.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
In our next episode of Practice Success Beyond the Dental Chair, we're joined by Dr. Rhonda Coyne to discuss dental monitoring. Discover how to create more individualised care for your patients while maintaining full control over your workflow. Join us every second Saturday for insights into DM and more on Practice Success Beyond the Dental Chair.